Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? It's Friday, April the 2nd, 2021, 12:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Happy Easter weekend to everybody out there. One more time. Let's do it one more time. My name's Dave McCrae. This is episode 158 of MCRAE Live. I'm coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And on the episode today, I wanted to talk about something you probably don't know anything about. Or maybe you do. Maybe you do. Maybe you are more of the cinephile than I think you are. Not that I'm a cinephile. But I like these kinds of things. I like these kinds of things that I stumble upon, that I'm able to sort of discover. And I think this is really cool. And I want to talk about a little film, a short film, that is only about 14 or 15 minutes long from 1971. The original name of this short film was called Judson's Release, I think. Judson's Release, I think it was. I'll get that confirmed in a second when we go over to the other screen. But it is known, actually, as Foster's Release. This is 1971, Foster's Release. And how I came across this was I was doing a bit of, I don't want to say research. It's not research, but I was reading up more on sort of, because I don't do a lot of reading, but I do a lot of, like, not a lot of reading in the sense of like where I read fiction and things like that. I don't do that. But I do go down rabbit holes, and I read a lot about movies and a lot about, you know what I'm talking about. So I went down this rabbit hole because I was reading more up on, I already know a lot about this, but I like to reread certain things to get confirmation. I was reading a lot about the urban legend, of course, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, which of course inspired the 1974 Black Christmas. It inspired the 1979 When a Stranger Calls. I mean, that is directly related. Black Christmas is kind of inspired by, because it's not a bunch of babysitters. The 1979 film with Carol Kane, I think her name is, which the first 20 minutes of that movie is great. I have to admit, I sort of side in the camp of that the rest of the movie is pretty lackluster, until you get to the end when it's like years later and she has her own kids and she gets the call at the restaurant and, have you checked the children? I love it. It's great. But everything between those 2 points is pretty, but nonetheless, I mean, that is sort of a direct relation to the urban legend. And Black Christmas, of course, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love it, obviously. Where the hell have you been? But it wasn't necessarily the first to introduce that concept. What I love about movies, and what the average Joe has to understand, is that everybody is inspired by everybody. And as long as you are not directly ripping somebody off, you're inspired by somebody, and you take that and make it your own, or you're inspired by the events, or you're inspired by that filmmaker or that writer or that director of photography or that actor or that comedian, or whatever the case is, you're inspired by. There's something they do, there's something they do that you see, or whatever the case is, that resonates with you. And you take that to inspire you in here to have your own talents. Excuse me. It inspires your if you have any talent, that is, because not everybody has talent. As I always say, you can teach technique, but you can't teach talent. You either have it or you don't. Sorry, folks. Reality of the business. Not everybody can do it. But if you do have some sort of creative bone in your body, you can be inspired by other artists, and you can be inspired by those that can ignite a fire in you and then you go out there and maybe in your, there's a film or a song or an act or, whatever it is that you do that you can clearly see that they're paying homage, you know what I mean? But they're making it their own. It's their own material. It's their own bits. It's their own ideas. Artists inspire artists all the time, So when I say that was Foster's release, 1971, the one that started it all, that's what I put on the thumbnail here, right? I mean, no. I mean, it is from a certain point of view, but I'm sure the writer of Foster's was inspired as well. There's a chain of events, and there's a lot of things that we don't even realize. And I know this may seem like a cop-out, but we can be inspired subconsciously. There's a lot of things that seep into our subconscious mind that are not necessarily at the forefront of our conscious mind, where we make creative decisions without even realizing we're doing it. I believe I stand to be corrected on this, because this is a bit of information I haven't seen in a while. But I remember years ago, I don't know if I read this, or maybe it was on a Black Christmas BTS or something. The director of My Bloody Valentine, which is another Canadian horror movie, by the way, the original. He's the, I think it was My Bloody Valentine. I think it was. Anyway, the director of this movie, when you watch certain decisions that the antagonist does, and you may not be thinking about this as a fan, but there's certain things that he does that the director has acknowledged are Billy-ish, little certain things in there. There's a couple little things in there that are Billy-like. And he said, he's on record as saying, I didn't even think of that when I was doing it. I wasn't even thinking of Black Christmas. I wasn't even thinking of Billy. I just was doing what felt right. I was doing instinctually what felt right. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes we can be inspired subconsciously. There's these things that seep into our subconscious that are affecting us, and we don't even realize it consciously. You know what I mean? That's a whole fascinating thing as well. So obviously whoever made, and we're going to talk about this in a second, Foster's release would have been inspired. What made them come up with this idea? What made them want to do this kind of movie? Was it something that they saw? And then you got to go back to what they heard or saw from Bob or Jane or June. And then you got to go, and what inspired Bob or Jane or June to do that? And I mean, there's this trail that you can keep going down, right? Will we ever find the foundation? I mean, who knows? So we have to kind of settle on something somewhere. But it's fascinating because there are a lot of parallels, because we often think of Black Christmas as the very first movie, and it probably is because Foster's release is an obscure short film that most of you probably never even fucking heard of at all. And I had never heard of it until about a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love this kind of stuff. It's information in my space. I love this kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I got to talk about this. But I had to wait, of course, till after, the It's Me Billy trailer and Kong and Godzilla and all that. So let's start here. So obviously there is a urban legend called the Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. Now I'm going to go over to the other screen in a second here, but I just want to read this quickly from Wikipedia. And I know it's Wikipedia, but this is true. I've seen this on other sites as well. And there's sources here. They have sources, which is always great. So the urban legend is the Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. That's the urban legend, okay? And it says here, the Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, also known as the Babysitter or the Sitter, is an urban legend that dates back to the 1960s about a teenage girl babysitting children who receive telephone calls from a stalker who continually asks her to check the children. The basic storyline has been adapted a number of times in movies. The 1950 murder of teenage babysitter Janet Christman, I believe, could be Christman, is commonly cited as a source of the legend, which could be true, right? It could be true. Usually these types of things, it's like art imitating life. I mean, it's a little sadistic to think that way in terms of an actual murder, but it's true. I mean, we know that where are we here? We know that Wes Craven wasn't, I mean, we know where Elm Street comes from. Yes, it's an original idea. It is. But Wes was inspired by those Cambodian, refugees, I think it was, who were afraid to go to sleep at night, in the 70s. And there were like these articles all about it. And they said, we're going to die in our sleep. And they actually died in their sleep. It was crazy. It was insane, right? We know that Fred Krueger is inspired by a guy that Wes Craven used to see as a kid out his window. And he was this old, creepy kind of guy, And I mean, we know that, right? So everybody's inspired by things. And this murder may have been the catalyst. Somebody somewhere may have thought, oh, that's creepy. Imagine babysitting. You're all alone. And you're murdered. How would you be murdered? What if the guy's in the house the whole time? You know what I mean? That's how these things start. So it became an urban legend because I'd have to read more up on the murder of Janet Christman, to find out whether the actual, whether her murderer was actually in the house. Because normally when things are urban legends, there's a kernel of truth to it, but you cannot prove without a shadow of a doubt a lot of it. That's why they're urban legends, right? They're myths. So Janet may have been murdered babysitting, which is what apparently happened. Whether the man was in the house the whole time, calling her to say, have you checked the children? I mean, who knows whether that part is true. It could be. I admit I'm not as familiar with that murder case. So it could very well be. But usually then it's not quite an urban legend then. It actually did happen. So, but really cool indeed. So of course it becomes an urban legend. And then of course you get films like, Peeping Tom, 1960, Psycho, 1960, which have nothing to do with that. But they are often cited as the first quote unquote slasher type of movies. I mean, you could call Alfred Hitchcock's 1954 Rear Window it's not a slasher movie, but it's a horror movie, right? I mean, horror movies existed with weird, creepy people, and I'm not talking about Frankenstein, Wolfman. I mean, there were films with creepy, weird individuals real people who ended up murdering people before Peeping Tom and Psycho. We're talking about certain sort of themes and tropes that end up being very apparent when we finally get to Halloween and you sort of kicking off the golden age of what is known as the slasher subgenre. So, but a lot of these tropes can apparently be stemmed from a little film called Foster's Release. Let's move over to the other page here. And I'm first going to read you a little bit about Foster's Release. Let me go here, over here. Other screen. There we go. You guys let me know if there's any weird audio issues. This is from Wikipedia, of course. I'm going to move this over because it's easier for me to do this because I can see it on my screen here. I'm just going to do this. So Foster's Release is a 1971 American short film directed by Terrence H. Winkles? Winkles, yeah. I think that's how you spell it, or how you say it, excuse me. The film has been credited with inventing many of the tropes of horror later used in films such as Black Christmas, Halloween, and He Knows You're Alone. The premise is a retelling of the common story of the babysitter and the man upstairs about a teenage babysitter who alone in a house at night is harassed by a series of phone calls made by a psychotic killer. The police and the phone company cooperate to try and warn the girl to save her. The film was featured at the Edinburgh Film Festival. I think that's the Edinburgh Film Festival. I think it's how you say that. Is Edinburgh? Edinburgh? Maybe I'm saying that wrong. There is no O-U-G-H there, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm saying that right. You can let me know, you fine folks out there. LA Filmex, and the Chicago Film Festival, among others. In Illinois, it is commonly shown to classes in home economics for whom it illustrates the concepts of responsibility. Can you imagine actually get it? Okay, we're going to watch this now. The film was shown together with short films by John Carpenter in 2014. So a little bit of information, not a lot of information on this movie. I had to do quite a bit of digging. There's not a lot of information on this film. I had to do quite a bit of digging, quite a bit. Anyway, this is interesting. We go over here to USC Cinematic Arts. It's from 2017, but I'm going to, hang on a sec. I'm actually going to make this smaller so I don't have to keep doing this. Okay, it's quite large, isn't it? If I have trouble, it should be okay though. Let me see here. How are we going to do here? Yeah, this should be okay. This should be okay. I want to scroll down to the part where it talks about it. So obviously these were some of the films that are part of that anthology. The program's 72 minutes long. Where are we here? Here we are. So these are two images, I believe, from the movie. It's a short film again. It all began when I took over the archive in 2010 and set a goal to find John Carpenter's student films. I am going to have to scroll over. That's so annoying. Oh, I almost got it. There we go. Hang on a sec. There we go. That should do it. I can still read it because I got my glasses on today. It all began when I took over the archive in 2010 and set a goal to find John Carpenter's student films. Because I grew up on horror and knew that he had attended USC back in the day, which is true. My motivation was that most of the writing has only ever mentioned the resurrection of Bronco Billy, which won an Oscar in 1971, but is not really a John Carpenter film since he was not the writer and director. Within the first year, I found Carpenter's 310 entitled Captain Voyeur. Interesting. Captain Voyeur. I've heard of this. And was able to restore it through a grant from the National Film Preservation Foundation. That is so fucking cool. Wouldn't you love to see these films? I would be totally down in seeing these films. It'd be amazing. Very cool. Excuse me, a little thirsty. I then set off to find other important horror-related USC student films, such as those by Dan O'Bannon, but kept coming up empty. I knew the name of one of O'Bannon's films, Bloodbath, but I was unable to locate any of the material, and so my quest went into hibernation. A year or so later, I picked up a new book by New York Times writer Jason Zinoman probably, entitled Shock Value: How a Few Eccentric Outsiders Gave Us Nightmares, Conquered Hollywood, and invented modern horror. Upon reading the book, I realized that he had some specific details about Bloodbath, and so I reached out to him. And he told me that he saw a version of the film that was loaned to him from Dan's window. Let me try that again. Sorry, the text is a little smaller than I would like because I'm trying to fit everything onto the screen here. So I reached out to him, and he told me that he saw a version of the film that was loaned to him from Dan's window, Diane O'Bannon, and he put me in touch with her. Okay. It took a while to actually connect face-to-face with Diane, who had been widow, not window. For some reason, I saw it as window. I don't know why. Widow. Now it makes sense. Now I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Window doesn't make... Widow. That's right. People after the fact are probably going, what the fuck's wrong with McCrae? Widow. Now that makes sense. Okay. Face to face with Diane, who had been dealing with the death of her husband and the large amount of material he had left behind. Not to mention finishing the release of a book on screenwriting that Dan had finished entitled Dan O'Bannon's Guide to Screenplay Structure. This is really cool. Very fascinating. Once I did, she pulled out of storage a number of boxes that contain not only the elements to Bloodbath, but all of O'Bannon's original 290s and a film he starred in, Foster's Release. When I saw the material, I jumped like a little kid and immediately brought it to USC to investigate. What I found was spectacular material, with Foster's release being simply one of the most important films I have ever seen, because it turned out to be the blueprint for many of the classic films in Zinnemann's book, Zinnemann. I think it's Zinnemann. Most notably, Halloween. My next plan was to reach out to the makers of Foster's release and find out more details. The first thing I found out was that the film was really called Judson's release, and only took on the Foster's moniker when they got a small distribution deal with the educational film company Pyramid in the early 1970s. The film's director, Terence Winkless, stated that the company had already finished printing their new catalog, and the only way for their film to appear was if it started with the letter F. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's right. That's right. O'Bannon was. Yeah, I've heard of the name. I've heard the name. But I've always heard as O'Bannon. I didn't know his first name was Dan. That I did not know, but I have heard of that name. Yeah, no, him and Carpenter knew each other. That should be pretty common. I mean, it's a bit of a deep cut, but it should be pretty common knowledge to the average, or to a Carpenter fan. Anyway, I find this really interesting. Okay, and of course, I just find this hilarious. And the only way for their film to appear was if it started with the letter F, because that was the only section left with some space. They changed the name and the film. And the film did its small run as a scare tactic babysitting awareness film, and then disappeared for 40 years. While Winkless and the film's screenwriter, Alec Lorimore, is would you pronounce the I in that? Lorimore? Again, that's my VO actor in me phonetically trying to. When you do this as often as I do, you'll come across names that it's crazy. I think it's Lorimore. Alec Lorimore went on to have mostly non-horror careers in Hollywood. Carpenter's Halloween came out in 1978, and he went on to legendary status, while O'Bannon had a successful career in Hollywood, but never quite reached the success of Carpenter. Fascinating. This is so cool. And this is why I would love to see this short film. Because again, it doesn't mean that we don't know if Bob Clark had seen it. Or Moore, the guy that wrote the screenplay for Black Christmas. We don't know if they had seen this. It could have been somebody else that had seen it, who spoke to somebody else, who was talking to Bob, who mentioned something that seeped into his subconscious that, who knows? Who knows? But at this time, 1971, the urban legend myth about the babysitter home alone with the man upstairs calling you was pretty common knowledge. I mean, it wasn't completely foreign, If this was 1950 something, that would be really interesting. Because that murder of Janet happened in the 50s. And if this was in the 50s, then it's like, whoa, like what came first, right? The chicken or the egg? Now that's really interesting. I'd love to know. This is 1971, arguably 15 years maybe removed from that murder. Who knows? Again, I wasn't around in the 50s or the 60s. I didn't come along to the late 70s. So who knows whether or not, what kind of sort of spiral that urban legend had up to that point. It was pretty common because people, took advantage of it, obviously, with the movies that they made. Again, Black Christmas putting their own spin on it. And certainly Black Christmas was the first quote unquote mainstream horror film, even though it wasn't mainstream. I mean, we know it. I mean, it it didn't do well in the US. They wanted to change the name because they thought Black Christmas would confuse people and they would think it was a blaxploitation film and with a bunch of black actors, and you know the story if you know all about it. But it's since gone on to have cult status in the horror genre, getting credit where it deserves as the first sort of mainstream film to introduce many of the tropes that you see in John Carpenter's Halloween. And we know that Carpenter and Clark knew each other. Now, did John Carpenter, was he consciously thinking of Bob Clark's Black Christmas as he was making Halloween? No, probably not. Even Bob Clark is on record as saying, yeah, John Carpenter did ask me, if you were to do a sequel to Black Christmas, what would you do? And Clark candidly was like, I don't know. I'd probably have him be locked up in a mental institution for a year, and then he'd escape and he'd go back to his hometown, and I'd probably have him escape on Halloween. For those of you that don't know Bob Clark apparently did say that to Carpenter. Sounds remarkably like Halloween. But Clark is also on record as saying that idea does not make a movie. I mean, the mask and the music and the cinematography and Michael Myers isn't Billy, and Halloween can stand on its own. It's its own thing. But maybe there was some sort of subconscious kind of, and we know that the title Halloween didn't come from Carpenter. It came from Irwin Yablans. Even the idea of the poster with the fist came from Irwin Yablans. So, again, I mean, who knows, right? But the idea of people inspiring each other, artists inspiring each other all the time, is a very real thing. I mean, I get inspired by people all the time, right? As I'm sure you do too. Again, the trick is just not to copy paste. You want to make it your own. You want to be inspired. You want to put your own spin on it or your own kind of thing on it. And that's okay. But artists are inspired by each other all the time. 1971, Judson's release, original title, but Foster's release, they had to change it to. I would love to see this. If anybody watching after the fact is able to get me a copy of this somehow, somewhere, whether it's a physical copy, whether it's a physical copy, whether it's a digital copy, please let me know, because I would love to watch this, because I would love to watch it and then not review it, because you know how I don't do formal reviews on the channel, but watch it and then do a show on it again, talking about what it is, like talking about what we see in it, and because I want to make notes and I want to see if there's real, like I want to watch Foster's release and then think about Black Christmas and think about Halloween and what are we seeing, especially Halloween. But what are we seeing that could be perceived as inspiration? I want to find out more information on this too. This looks like a film that was pretty buried. It had that run at festivals. I'd love to know who was at those festivals. Who was at those festivals? Because it's all about finding again, I mean, this would be probably extremely hard to pin down, especially now, because it's nearly, 60 years. I mean, it's so far away, right? 50 years later, but it would just be really cool to be able to kind of go down that chain and find out who was at those festivals, because according to this article here, it literally, played at a couple of festivals and then was buried for 40 years. I mean, have you heard of it? Comment below and let me know if you're watching after the fact. Have you heard of this film? I hadn't heard of this film until a couple of weeks ago. But I like this kind of stuff. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of, John Carpenter's Halloween. I mean, people are so obsessed and it's original, and it's like, well, yes, it is, but there's a whole film history. I wish more people would, and it's not like I'm a cinephile of the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. I'm not. I know maybe more than the average moviegoer does, but certainly I don't claim to be an expert. But I do think it's important that film fans and horror fans understand their roots and where things come from as best as they can, and understand that there was a long history of creepy people killing people long before Michael Myers, folks. You know, I mean, it may not have been considered a slasher because the term slasher wasn't in the pop culture consciousness before the late 70s, early 80s. But if you go back to, you know, I don't know, you go back to, God, some of these movies, I mean, yeah, like there's a lot of old black and white movies I've seen where I'm like, oh, this is totally a slasher. I mean, you don't see any blood and you don't see any like, you know, any of this stuff. But it's like, yeah, this is totally what that would have been. You know what I mean? 30 years before Michael Myers. So it's important that we understand that. But it's about the tropes. It's about what becomes sort of the common themes and the common tropes that we identify slasher films as. Where did that begin? And a lot of people think it was Black Christmas. And for all intents and purposes, it was. But there's a little short film buried called Foster's Release, 15 minutes long, that is about a babysitter babysitting and getting fucking weird calls from a murderer who, now, again, I'm trying to find more information on this movie. The title was originally called Judson's Release. Let me just go to the other screen here so you guys see me a bit better. Judson's Release. And then they changed it to Foster's Release. I got to find out. Let me go to actually, because when you go to IMDb, this is what's really cool too. Foster's Release, 1971. It is on IMDb. There isn't a plot. Mary Birkin, Milton Hubatica, maybe? Something like that. And Dan O'Bannon, of course, is in it. And if you guys don't know who Dan O'Bannon is, you know, you should, because he's had quite the career as a writer. Not quite the career as a writer, but I mean, like, things are based on a lot of the things that he wrote. Not a successful career, but you know what I mean. You should know the name if you know John Carpenter. But Dan O'Bannon is in it. But the characters are just referred to as the girl, the boy, the killer. The girl, the boy, the killer. Fascinating. Alec, he was the DP. Very cool, very cool. So cool. I got to see this movie. So there's not a lot there. But then you look at what's recommended. Here's what's so cool. Let me throw this over here so you guys can see this. This is what's so cool about being inspired, right? And things that you might not know. Here we go. Ready? We're going to the other screen now. Look at this. This is on the IMDb page for, it's up there, for Foster's Release. Look what's being recommended to me. The Sitter, 1977. The Sitter, 1977. Now, I've heard of this movie. Have you guys heard of this? The Sitter, 1977. Let's check it out. A babysitter is menaced by mysterious and frightening phone calls. Oh! But that's before 1979's When a Stranger Calls. It's before 1979's When a Stranger Calls. What? What? Yes. Why, yes, it is. There's 1979's When a Stranger Calls right there. Now, whether the movie's good or not, I have no idea. Budget says it was about $12,000. It's 22 minutes long. It's a short film. 22 minutes long. Did this movie inspire When a Stranger Calls? I don't know. Who knows, right? Who knows? So, again, Foster's Release. I want to see this movie. Because again, the title, Judson's release, changed to Foster's release. Who Foster, I assume, is the name of the killer, perhaps? I'm trying to find out that information. Maybe the killer was Judson's, but they had to change it to Foster. His release. So was he released from? Do you know what I mean? Yes, it is on the Blu-ray. That's right. No, my question was, or is it on the Blu-ray? I'd have to check because I don't have the Blu-ray. I just have the DVD of When a Stranger Calls. Yes, same filmmakers. That's right. That's right. No, my question was rhetorical, by the way, folks. It was rhetorical. I wanted to see how many of you knew that. But that's what I mean, right? A lot of these things start small and then become When a Stranger Calls, right? But not a lot of people know that, is my point. Not a lot of people know about The Sitter. Not a lot of people know that, right? Not a lot of people know that The Sitter was the catalyst for When a Stranger Calls. That's my point, right? People just focus on When a Stranger Calls, or they just focus on Halloween, Black Christmas. They don't really go back into the Rolodex to look at, well, is there something in here that this came from? Like, where did this come from? You know, how did this come to be? Yes, it is. The Sitter is on YouTube. That is correct. Where Nomad has gone before. Yeah. Oh, no, folks, I know about The Sitter. I was speaking, maybe I didn't make myself clear. I was speaking rhetorically, like, what? I wasn't actually shocked. That's why I was doing it that way. I was doing it because I think there are probably still people out there, even watching this, that don't even know that, right? That don't know that. Like, oh, it was? I thought When a Stranger Calls was like its own thing, and these things happen all the time. I mean, let's not forget that Saw, you want to get a little more modern, Saw began as a short film. James Wan's Saw was like, how long was it? I want to say 30 minutes, but it might have been less than that. Maybe it's a lot less than that. Anyway, Saw began as a short film, right? A lot of these types of things begin that way. No, I've seen The Sitter. It's good. I like it. I always think the girl in it, at first, when I first see her, reminds me of Adrienne King from the first Friday the 13th movie. It's not her, by the way. Evil Alex says, isn't it all inspired by Hitchcock films? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Alfred Hitchcock was not the only director that directed suspense, that directed, these kinds of movies. There's a lot of suspense, eerie, dark film noir movies out there. I mean, Eyes Without a Face and Touch of Evil and that have nothing to do with Alfred Hitchcock. Were they inspired by Alfred Hitchcock? Maybe. But who was Alfred Hitchcock inspired by? I mean, Alfred Hitchcock obviously is one of the big players, for sure. But there's a lot of wonderful movies out there with what could be perceived as original ideas that have nothing to do with Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, we sometimes forget, too, that Alfred Hitchcock was a long, well-established filmmaker before Psycho. I mean, Psycho was 1960. Alfred Hitchcock began in silent films. Did you know that? Crazy, isn't it? Crazy. Tom Ungurian says, Hitchcock did inspire everything. Well, not everything, but he's a big player. He's a big player, for sure. He had a big effect, a big effect, 100%. But there are other filmmakers out there too that have inspired and put their staple on the genre, going back to, I mean, Italian films from the 40s and the 50s to there's a lot of stuff that isn't Hitchcock, right? But Hitchcock is a big player for sure. Darren Sand says, I liked House Sitter. Goldie Hawn? Steve Martin? What? But this is really cool. And I want to see this movie. It's only 14 or 15 minutes long. It's not on YouTube, apparently. I checked. It's very difficult to find. But if you know where I can get a copy, if you have a copy, which probably you don't, because if this thing was buried for 40-something years and this guy, which excuse me, my apologies. I have to get his name. What am I doing here? I started reading that article without giving credit to the author of the article here. One second. Dun, 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 dun. Where are you here? Da, 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 da. You're not going to tell me. Why are you not telling me who? One second here. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, that's what I want to do. That's not what I wanted to do. I was trying to find the author. I had his name when I was reading it, and usually it should be at the top there. Oh, wait a sec. Wait a second. Maybe it's over here somewhere. I don't have time to go through all this right now. We're live. Don't have time to go through it. I will find that out after the fact. But But I know the guy's name. I had found it before I began reading the other day. I want to see this. And I want to be able to see, I want to watch it because I think it is an important film. I think he's right. I think it is an important film. I think it's the kind of movie that should be out there, should be seen, especially today. I mean, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, nobody would give a fuck. Now, with the access, the access and the ease of information, and this thing would do well. I mean, relatively. You wouldn't necessarily spend the money to release it on its own DVD, but you would package it with something, like what they did with The Sitter and When a Stranger Calls. You wouldn't necessarily package it with that, but I'm saying you would package it with something. You do something. You would release it as a digital thing or something. I do think it's important. I think they're right. Because I always find it fascinating knowing the roots of where these things come from. I mean, John Carpenter absolutely made a lot of the tropes that are popular today famous, but he wasn't the first to do it. I would love to see in the 71 Foster's release the techniques that are used. It's only a 14 to 15 minute movie, but I want to see the style for which it's shot. I want to see the camera angles. I want to see the use of light and shadow. I want to see the use of, frame within a frame, whether or not they take advantage of that. I want to see what did these relatively inexperienced filmmakers do with this? And because sometimes you see certain things where you go, holy shit, that's a POV shot. Walking down the stairs. Now it's handheld, because they didn't have the Steadicam then. The Steadicam was still a few years away, but wow, it's a POV shot in a horror movie, in a slasher movie, in a Babysitter in the Man Upstairs movie. It's a holy shit. Look at this. He's coming down the stairs. You know what I mean? I'd love to see that. Does that exist in Foster's release? I don't know. I have no idea. But I want to see it. When you look at the thumbnail that is on, today's show, I found that online. It's kind of cool putting that beside Jamie Lee Curtis, right? Again, I mean, that's in a vacuum, right? You can draw parallels, visual parallels from most movies and relate it to other films. You can. Movies have nothing to do with each other. You can do that. You can have somebody, going like this in a comedy and somebody going like this in an action movie, and they have nothing to do with each, and you just put, oh, look at that. You can make anything appear as anything in a snapshot, in time, in a vacuum. We could watch Foster's release and be like, this doesn't look, I mean, I get, but this doesn't, you know what I mean? it's not the story. We know what the story is. It's about a guy terrorizing a girl on the phone while she's babysitting. Well, we know that. That's what Foster's Release is about, or Judson's Release. We know that. But it's the filmmaking techniques that carry over from generation to generation. You know, it's those tropes, it's those themes that we take for granted today. Where did it start? Right? Was it in Foster's Release? Has Carpenter seen the movie? Was he a big fan of the movie? Was he there at one of the festivals watching it? I don't know. I want to know this information. This information I want to know. Sir Fazbender says, have you seen Alien? Oh, have I seen Alien? That's like asking if I've seen The Goonies. Of course I've seen Alien. Of course I've seen Alien, my man. Not in a while, but I have seen it. Yeah, great film. Great film. Classic. Ridley Scott, my man. Yeah, anyways, it's cool. I wanted to bring this film to everybody's attention because, you know, when I read that article a few days ago, and especially that line where it says, you know, this essentially has been buried for 40 years. This is a movie that Dan O'Brien is in, by the way. Dan O'Bannon is in, by the way. It's been buried for 40 years. And it makes sense to a degree because short films never really, I mean, today short films are, especially because of online and YouTube and Vimeo, and you know, it's a different world today. It's a different culture. Short films are more accepted today. Short films launch careers. They have always launched careers to a degree. Certainly they can do that today. But I understand why something like Foster's Release was buried. It's a short film. It may not even be that good. Like, that's something we have to keep in mind as well. It may not even be that good. Do you know what I mean? May not even be that good. So I think it's important that when we discover things like this, especially for horror fans, when you realize there could be a parallel and a connection, that we actually have a chance to see it. Now, this article was from like 4 years ago. I'll be very curious to see if we can, you know, where is that now? I'd love to see this movie. I would so love to see this movie. Let me just, hang on a sec. I have to look. Foster's Release. I want to just double check the runtime. Yeah, it's saying like, it says like 14 minutes. Could be 15 minutes. Who knows? Could be 15 minutes. But it's cool, man. It's cool. I want to see this. I want to see this. I want to see this. Reese Wilson sends in a super chat and says, it's me, Billy. Full trailer looks amazing. Your work has inspired, motivated our Indiana Jones fan film in remaining true to the spirit and essence of the OG trilogy. So well done. Well, congratulations, Reese, and thank you very much for the $22.99 Australian dollar super chat. Really appreciate that, man. And good luck on that Indiana Jones fan film. Indiana Jones is a tough one to do. It's a tough one to do because it's very, you know, it's in many ways, they are period piece films. So they can be difficult to do if you're setting it in that time period, in that time frame. But cool stuff. Cool stuff indeed. Cool stuff indeed. Cool stuff indeed. Let's see here. Darren, my man, Darren says, great London gangster movie with Bob Hoskins and Pierce Brosnan, cracking synth score. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about now. Although I love Bob Hoskins. Rest in peace, Bob Hoskins. I love Bob Hoskins. What movie are you talking about? I'll have to scroll up and check it out. Frank Reiger says, Dave, through my research, most people still refer to it as Judson. So maybe that's where we should look, and maybe we should. And I can understand that. Even though it was officially released as Foster's Release, purists, because that's the original intent, right? I can totally understand that releasing it or searching for it as Judson's release, we may find more information on it in that regard. It's a great point, Frank. It's a great point, and we may find more information on it if we search in that. So yes, Judson's release. If anybody has access to this movie, I would love to see it. Darren follows up with, do you know who wrote Alien? Well, yes, I do. Dan O'Bannon wrote Alien, my man. Dan O'Bannon. That's why I would have loved to have seen him write. I mean, he has written other things, but that really is that was his big one. That was his big one. Let me see here. Robert Thidos of Days, are you surprised I never made a sequel to Forrest Gump based on the sequel book Gump and Company? They talked about it. They did talk about it, Robert. I'm not overly surprised. No, I don't think it needs a sequel. You know, I mean, it's kind of, we get the story. I don't need to see more of Forrest Gump. I get it. I get his story. Because it would have been the same, because isn't it the same kind of thing where now he's just changing culture again, but this time it's like the 80s and the 90s or something, or something like that. I'm like, yeah, we don't need that. We don't need it. Like, we don't need it. That's how I feel, though. That's how I feel. The Long Good Friday. The Long Good Friday. I do know this movie. Let me just Google this. I do know this movie. The Long Good Friday. The Long Good Friday. Yes. Yep. I was going to say 75. I was way off. It's 1980. I don't know why I thought it was in the 70s. So, maybe it's because it's pretty close to the 70s. Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it, though. I admit I haven't seen it. I want to watch it. Fucking love Bob Hoskins, man. Great. So totally underrated. At least here in North America. I don't know what it was like over there, but in North America, I think he was underrated. So yeah, so that's all I got to say about that. I mean, that's sort of the information we've got. Judson's release, AKA Foster's release. Folks, let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you think about this kind of stuff. And are you somebody that likes this kind of information, that likes, you know, this trivia, juicy, sometimes anecdotal, but good, solid information. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say it's useless, but it's sort of like, you know, I can understand why people may not be as interested in this kind of stuff as I am, because really, unless it ends up in a Jeopardy question, who cares? But I think it's cool. I think it's cool to know where these things come from. And that doesn't mean that what Clark did and what Carpenter did stem from Judson's release. It doesn't mean that, because you could watch the movie and be like, oh yeah, well, they have the babysitter and the man upstairs, but there's really nothing about this that really is anything that, like, you know what I mean? Because we haven't seen it. It could be dog shit. It could be a terrible movie. I don't know. I want to see it because it's Dan O'Bannon. And I want to see this. I think it's really significant. I want to see it. Justin Goodrich sends in a $5 super chat and says, any recommendations for quality, affordability? Well, I guess kind of. Any recommendations for quality, affordable, cameras for someone getting into filmmaking? Do you feel quality is more in the camera or the editing? Well, it's, Justin, look, I mean, you know, our cell phones today are incredible, especially you have, you know, like the iPhone 11 or the Galaxy S20 or, you know, whatever it is. Look, having a good camera helps. You can't go wrong with it. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand filmmaking, you don't understand lighting, you don't understand composition, you don't understand, you know, your ISO or your white balance, or, you know, the difference between tungsten and daylight balanced. And, you know, if you don't understand these things, it doesn't matter what you're shooting on. It doesn't matter. You could be shooting on a Canon C300, which is a pretty professional prosumer level though. But you could shoot a film on that 100%. If you don't, you could have the best piano in the world, the best, most magnificent, beautiful, tuned. It's considered the best piano in the world. If you don't know how to play it, it doesn't matter. It's going to sound like shit. So it's both with what you're saying, and it's neither or with what you're saying. And that's because editing is incredibly important, but editing is a skill too. You have to know where to make, you have to have a feel for editing in terms of when do I cut? How long do I linger? Do I have dialogue over this scene? Because a lot of the times with newbies who are editing, they will edit very, it's going to sound kind of funny because I like storytelling in a linear fashion. But in terms of editing, we're talking about editing, which is telling a story, but hopefully you see what I'm saying. They're very linear, very sort of pedestrian, predictable, very kind of just clean, very clean with their edits. So, this person and that person and this person and that person and that person talks and this person talks and that person talks and this person talks. When in reality, that's not how movies are edited. Sometimes I'll be speaking and then it'll cut to the other person who's listening to me, but you can still hear me talking over the other person. It's understanding those types of things, right? It's understanding when do we cut, and sometimes it's frames. Sometimes it can be, this feels too long. Why does this feel too long? And sometimes it's a matter of shaving off 5 frames and then now all of a sudden it feels perfectly fine. Editing is a huge talent and something that can make or break a film. It doesn't matter how good your movie looks. If you don't have an editor that knows what they're doing, or if you yourself don't know what they're doing, it can be very difficult. So my advice is that I would never tell you to not get out there and shoot. Get out there and shoot. Make movies, man. I mean, I don't know, how old you are, but when I was a teenager, we were shooting on high 8mm camera, VHS cameras, editing VCR to VCR. I mean, the technology that people have today, that even teenagers and young aspiring filmmakers is insane. To have this 25 years ago at my fingertips here like this would have been insane. Would have cost thousands of dollars. So yes, if you're shooting on a full frame DSLR, with a super 35mm sensor or something, I mean, yes, it can really help make things look good, but you still have to understand composition and lighting. And when you understand that, you can shoot a pretty good looking movie on your cell phone. If you watch the movie that Bruce and I did, and it was all for fun, it's a Halloween fan film. It's on my channel called Haddonfield Reaper. Haddonfield Reaper. It was shot 2.5 years ago, September of 2018. Bruce and I were sitting around at his place trying to figure out something to do. And we thought, you know what, let's just shoot a little Halloween fan film. We're like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just make it up. And we shot it in about 4.5 hours. No, 5 hours or so. And I edited it over one weekend. It was all shot. Everything was shot on that phone. This phone right here, the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. It was all shot on this. Everything. And we used a gimbal, a phone gimbal. That's it. But when you watch it, you understand that we're paying attention to lighting. We're paying attention to composition. We're paying attention to, it feels pretty good. So it really is about understanding filmmaking techniques, understanding how to make a movie, not just what you shoot on. Not just what you shoot on. I get questions all the time from people. Oh my God, what did you shoot it on? What did you shoot, the It's Me Billy trailer on? I was like, well, the Arri Alexa, it's like a $100,000 camera, but it would have looked like shit if it wasn't for Greg, our DP, if it wasn't for Jacqueline, our focus puller, if it wasn't for Nikita and Naz and Luke and Adrian and Stuart. And I mean, it's, do you know what I mean? I know it's not the answer you're probably looking for. You probably wanted me to say, oh, you know what? You just buy the Canon DSLR5 and you edit on Final Cut Pro. That's it. I think you're smarter than that. You know I wasn't going to just say that. But I care. I think it's a good question, man. I think it's a really good question. And I care about it. And I want you to succeed. So get out there, make movies, whether it's shot on your phone, whatever the case is. You can take your phone, and if you understand lighting and composition, I'm telling you, you can make a pretty good looking movie on your phone. You can. Is it going to look like It's Me, Billy? No, but it's not supposed to. It was shot on your phone. But you can make something look pretty good. I mean, I think even Soderbergh shot something on his iPhone a couple of years ago. It's pretty good. And if you want it to look a little more cinematic, always shoot at 24 frames per second. Don't shoot at 29. Don't shoot at 30. For heaven's sakes, do not shoot at 60. It's going to look too video. It's going to look too home movie. Always shoot at 24 frames per second. So that'll help. That's something that's just a switch of a button. So that's something easy peasy to do. But really understand composition and lighting. Understand the filmmaking techniques. Understand filmmaking. Understand that when I'm making a movie and I have two people at a table, I don't just shoot the entire scene from the back of the room. You may want to shoot that as your establishing shot so we know where they are, but then you want to go in for close-ups. You know what I mean? And I see a lot of aspiring filmmakers will shoot one scene from one angle. They just kind of pop the camera down, and away you go. And audio is important too. Audio is very important as well. So there's a whole thing around it. But just know that if you have a decent DSLR, one of the Canon Rebel cameras or something like that, that's fine. That's great. Now they're interchangeable lenses. So lenses are important too. Understanding lenses, understanding wide angle lenses and telephoto lenses and I mean, there's a lot of different, not telephoto. You wouldn't necessarily use a telephoto lens making a movie. I mean, you might, but not necessarily. But understanding lenses is important. And depth of field. Depth of field is a big one. Oh my God. You can make your films look so magnificent just understanding depth of field. So if you got a good phone, an updated phone, that's pretty good. Editing software, if you're on a Mac, you're likely to edit. If you have iMovie, I think that'll do the trick. But usually people who edit on Macs edit on either Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere. You can also edit on DaVinci Resolve, which is a pretty big main player. That's what It's Me, Billy is being edited on. You can also download a free version of DaVinci Resolve. Now, again, there's a learning curve to learn how to use it, but you can download the free version. If you want the studio version with all the bells and whistles, well, that's going to cost you a few $100. That's what we have, obviously. But you can download the free version from the DaVinci Resolve website. Like, it's 100% free. You just download it, install it. And that'll work on both a Mac and PC. Make sure you choose the one that's for Mac, but it will work on both a Mac and a PC. So again, I know it's not the answer that maybe people want to hear, but it's true. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter. Obviously, if it didn't matter, Hollywood would save money and shoot everything on their fucking phones. Obviously, it matters to a degree. That's why Hollywood shoots on the Red and the Airy, and you know what I mean? Like, yes, obviously, because of the dynamic range, because of the lenses and the sensors, and it's just, you just can't get you can't get better than that. But at the end of the day, if you have a good phone or a good DSLR, a solid, you can make some pretty special things happen, my man. You can make some special things happen. So my advice is really understand filmmaking before you make any purchases. I know that was a long-winded question. Frank Reiger said, Dave, did you get Tom Ungurian's super chat at the beginning? Ooh, I may not have. Let's see here. I may not have. Was there one in the beginning? Let's see. I don't recall there being one in the beginning, but there might be. Let's go over. Monetization. Oh. No, I didn't. Thank you, Frank. Tom, thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Tom says, Dave, do you believe you have to go to film school to become a successful filmmaker, or just be inspired and smart and have connections just as good? I do not believe you have to be a filmmaker to be a success, or go to college to be a successful filmmaker. No. But that's not me saying that I don't think you should go to college. I mean, I spent 2 years at film school. I studied radio, television, and film, and I really enjoyed it. I went to Niagara College here in Canada, in Niagara Falls, obviously, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. But for me, I was starting to fall behind in my second year because there was just so much work, and obviously there's not so much work for everybody because people do graduate from the program. But for me, I was having trouble keeping up. So I decided to drop out, leave, and pursue my career in a different way. And I never looked back. I think one of the coolest things, I don't know if I've told this before, but one of the coolest things was, now, obviously I ended up in more of the acting side of things and the filmmaking side of things, but they're all connected. Once you get into the business, you'll find, if you're successful, you'll find that there's a lot of overlap. That being said, I remember in about 2009 or 10, I got an email from somebody who was a third year film student at Niagara College wanting to interview me for their thesis on voiceover. He was doing a thesis on the film industry and movie making, and voiceover was a part of his thesis. And I just thought that was so funny because I don't know if he was under the impression that I was an alum in the sense that I graduated. I mean, I guess I'm an alum in the sense that I went there, but in terms of graduating, I don't know if he didn't know I was a dropout. So I thought it was really ironic. And then I asked who his professor was, and it was the same professor that taught me. So I can only imagine what that must have been like when now they're interviewing me in the third year thesis of a film program that I dropped out of. I just thought it was hilarious. I forget the guy's name. Maybe he's watching. Hey, I hope you graduated. I hope you got a good mark. I can't remember if he ever told me if he did, but I thought that was kind of funny. But no, I mean, look, I would never persuade anybody not to go to college because, you learn, especially when it's a hands-on program, you know what I mean? Where you can have practical, you can get your hands on things. Going to film school is huge, and you learn the practical nature of making movies. You learn how to make movies. You understand everything that I was talking to you about, composition and lighting and tungsten and daylight and all that shit that I was just talking about. You learn that in film school. You learn that. So huge plus. But going to film school in and of itself isn't going to make you a successful filmmaker. There are more people out there that have graduated from prestigious film school classes that are not working in the film industry or not succeeding in the ways they want. Far more of them than there are people succeeding. Now, again, there's variables to reasons why that is, but certainly it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. You can have a successful career without going to film school. What film school can do, and what college and university tends to do a lot of, is open doors. Right? You can meet people, make those connections, Carpenter, O'Bannon, you know what I mean, right? You make connections. Oh, somebody knows this or this. That can relate, especially if you're going to a film school like USC. Like, I mean, there's little Niagara College, you know what I mean? And then there's USC. Like, I mean, those are like completely, that's completely different. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. There's a lot of successful filmmakers, I'm sure the chat room can list off quite a few, that either never went to film school or dropped out. So, no, it doesn't mean that. But it can definitely help. It won't hurt. The only thing it's going to hurt is maybe your wallet. Because, tuition ain't cheap, right? So if you're going for like 2 or 3 years or 4 years or however long the program is, yeah, you may be, unless you're very well off already, it could be that's the only hindrance. But in terms of like learning filmmaking and the craft and that's never a bad thing. That will already give you a leg up on somebody who's never gone or doesn't know anything about it. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean you're going to be successful. And there's many examples of people who've never gone or dropped out that are hugely successful. So they're not mutually exclusive to each other. But great question. Thanks, Tom. David Lee Barron sends in a $4.99 super chat and says, Dear Dr. Piche, did you see my clip on Instagram where it was the bar scene and I was Michael Myers in the background killing that guy? I don't know if I did. I'll have to check. I get tagged, and so many things that I'm tagged in so many things, I should say, that I may have missed that one. I'll go back and have a look, David, and I will see. That sounds really fucking funny. So, so let me go back and have a look and I'll let you know, because I don't recall. But maybe if I watch, I'll be like, oh yeah, I did see this. I did see this. I did. Admittedly, I do admit, I try to watch everything that I'm tagged in, and I do admit that sometimes I'm not the best at hearting it to let you know that I've seen it. My intention is to do it, but then sometimes I'll see an image or I'll watch a video and I'll get lost in the image or the video, and I'm like, aha, that's so great. And then I forget to kind of heart it to let you know that, hey, I've seen it. That's awesome. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I'll definitely go back and have a look, or tag me again in it, and then I'll be able to see it. Trevor Bristow says, Dave, hey Dave, just want to say about the movie It's Me Billy 2021. I hope it's 2021. I don't know of any other one. I just want to say, how long is the movie? I mean, the original Black Christmas 74 is like 1 hour and 37 minutes. Well, this is a short film. So it's not a feature-length film. It's not going to be 90 minutes long. It's not going to be as long as Black Christmas, because if we wanted to shoot a feature-length film, we would have had to ask for a lot more money, because when you're shooting a feature, obviously you have to extend the days, which you got to pay the crew and the cast and insurance and catering and the location and everything doubles and triples. So no, it's a short film. But when I say short film, I don't mean 5 minutes. We don't have an exact time yet, but we're very close. I can tell you right now, just to whet your appetite a little bit, it will be over 30 minutes long. It will be over 30 minutes long. So now that doesn't mean it's going to be, an hour long. I just mean that it is likely going to be over 30 minutes long right now. So, but we'll have an exact runtime for you soon. Maybe even, well, I don't want to promise that, but soon for sure. So as you can see, if you take that into consideration and then you take the teaser and the trailer into consideration, like, wow, there's a lot we haven't seen. There's a lot you haven't seen. Andreas Mendez says the value of college degrees has decreased. Ain't that the truth? But grads make more money over their lifetime on average. That's statistically true. Most people don't work in their degree field. That is also true. Dave is right about connections. That's very important. That is also true. I think everything is true there. No, it's true, man. Look, you can have the prettiest degree all you want, but in a lot of cases, it is who you know. And there's a lot. That's why there are so many people, especially in the entertainment industry, who shouldn't be doing what they're doing, who maybe don't have a charismatic bone in their body or don't have a talent leg to stand on, but yet they're somehow, raking in the dough and out there because of who they know or because of their connections. That cannot be understated. That is a fact and a reality, not just of the entertainment industry, of course, but of any business, right? Connections go a long way. Oh, my Uncle Bob's the CEO. Gee, I wonder if I'm not, what, unless your Uncle Bob hates your guts, he's probably going to give you a job. You know what I mean? So yeah, connections are huge. Absolutely huge. For sure. Huge. They're absolutely huge. Did you miss me? I'm still here. It's okay. It's okay. Tremendous. Dave Bob Betway says, Dave, I feel like I'm in college course every time I watch one of your videos. Oh God, Jesus, I'd be a very sporadic professor, they'd probably think I was on pot. If I miss a live, I feel like I miss a class. Love what you do, Dave. Thank you. Thank you, Professor McCrae. Well, I appreciate that compliment for sure. I mean, I know, like, I have my own style. I get excited, right? I get excited. I go off on tangents. I ramble a bit, but I always bring it back home. I mean, I know who I am in that regard. So, but I enjoy it. I get excited. I get genuinely excited to talk movies, but particularly the things that I'm interested in, and learning from other people. And it's just really cool. So I appreciate you saying that very much. It's a very nice thing to say, man. And thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. Duke Fleed says, Dave, have you ever watched the Italian slasher movie, A Bay of Blood? I have not. It's the film that inspired Friday the 13th. Oh yes, A Bay of Blood. I have not seen it, but I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about because I am familiar with the Friday the 13th story. And A Bay of Blood, yes. I haven't seen it, though. I haven't seen it. I need to check it out. Apollo Balboa, 1985, says, Dave, could Scream 5 work if it took a page out of New Nightmare, having Ghostface picking off all the cast members of the Scream franchise? Look, anything's possible. Anything is possible. But I'm going to say no. I don't think that's what fans want. I think fans would be, but I'm the first to always say, winning solves everything. You make a really good movie and people are probably going to forgive it. But I don't think that's the direction they want to go. People want Ghostface back. I just hope that they just don't do the same thing. Oh, like I talked about with Cecil, I think it's time to get ballsy. It's time to take risks. It's time to kill off one of the main cast members. And I think it probably, your most expendable cast member that I think probably that most people probably wouldn't give a fuck about is probably Gail. Because I think Dewey is a fan favorite. I don't think people really care about Gail. But I don't think she's the one that should die. I think it should be Dewey in the opening. But Cecil Laird of the horror show also said, what about Sydney? I'm like, I'm down. I want to see risks. That's what I want to see. But I don't think they're going to do that. So no, I don't think that's something they would do. Let me see here. Troy Grubb says, good show today, Dave. Thank you very much, man. I hope you were doing good and Going to get my COVID-19 shot today. My birthday is this Sunday. I had turned 29. I always learn something from you, Dave. Love the show. Thank you, Troy. Really appreciate that. You're getting your shot today, buddy. Good luck on that. And hopefully it doesn't have any sort of, hopefully you feel okay afterwards because we know how sometimes shots can be, right? So, but good for you, man. Good for you. Darren, I was like, who is this? Darren, 5 pounds says, get yourself an egg. Get myself an egg? What? I'm lost. What am I? I'm lost. Darren, my man. Get yourself an egg. Why is this going over my head? Get yourself an egg. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. Sorry. We're talking movies. I was really into movies. We were talking about stuff and movies. And then Darren was like, get yourself an egg. And I thought that was like some line from some horror movie. Like, here, get yourself an egg. No, he's sending me 5 pounds and telling me to go get myself a chocolate egg. Well, that's very nice of you, Darren. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Right over my head, man. Right over my head. And by the way, and I'm not just, I need to say this again. The Slaughtered Lamb, folks, you got to tune into this. Darren Sands, Frank Riker, The Slaughtered Lamb. I'm telling you, you got to do it. I want to share it too. I'm going to share it. Darren, send me in a Facebook message. I'll share it on my Many Things page. Send me the link to what you would like to be shared. Because I don't know if you want it, like, if you want your YouTube shared or if iTunes or Spotify or whatever. Send me the link you want me to share, and I'm going to share it because I've been meaning to do this for a number of weeks and I keep forgetting. Because I want to share it on my Facebook page too, because that'll reach a lot of people as well. So, because I think you guys are great and what you're doing over there, and I love the logo and I love your Facebook page and what you're doing. I'm telling you, man, I think you guys are. I think this is good. This is good, as Robert De Niro would say. An Easter egg, a chocolate egg. Yeah, I know. That's for me. That's for me, Darren. That's for me. That's one more time. Yep. That was what was in Darren's head as he was seeing me go, "Get yourself an egg. I don't get it. I don't get it." Brooke Louie. Brooke, I haven't seen you in a while. Great to see you here. Happy Easter weekend. Thank you so much, Brooke, for sending that in. Really appreciate that. And have a happy Easter weekend to you as well. And happy Easter to everybody out there. I hope if you have children that the bunny is good this year. That the bunny is good to you even if you don't have kids. So yeah, Easter, it's hard to believe it's Easter already. Holy shit. And Ontario is in another lockdown. That was for that. Pedro's Lucario. Am I saying that right? Pedro's Lucario? Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but maybe I'm saying it right. I don't know. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Thank you for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate it. It says, just wanted to say, even though I've never watched a second of Black Christmas, I felt like it was only right to contribute to It's Me, Billy, since you're one of the guys I like to watch regarding horror. Thank you so much. That is such a nice thing to say. And, you know, again, like this is another example of the other day on the show, I said, the outreach humbles you. You know, and it really does. You know, the support from fans, even if you can't contribute financially, that's okay, man. That's okay. Sharing the trailer, talking about it with your friends, word of mouth goes a long ways. And in some cases, that's how these types of fan films get recognized, is word of mouth, because of the stigma of fan film, right? They don't realize that, it's actually shot professionally. You know what I mean? And so sometimes these types of movies need that extra push, especially with something like Black Christmas. Friday the 13th, Halloween, not so much. But Black Christmas, you need that extra push. So, you know, talking about it, sharing it with your friends, it means the world, man. And to hear you say that means a lot. So I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the support to the channel. Have a great Easter weekend, my man. David Lee Barron sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you so much, David. And says, Dear Dr. Piche, I've recently gone full-time in the film industry. Amazing, amazing. Congratulations. Do I have applause here? I think I have applause somewhere. Wait one second. I have applause. Where is applause? I thought I had applause somewhere here. Do I not have applause? I thought I did. Where's my applause? There it is. It's so corny and cheesy, isn't it? I need to get better applause than the stock one that came with this. Dear Dr. Piche, I recently went full-time in the film industry. I work with a great production studio here in Dallas, Texas. Amazing. Amazing. I owe a big thanks to you. This channel has been my film school. I posted much of my work on Instagram. Cool. Well, tag me in some of that shit because I want to see it, man. I want to see it. That's so cool. I don't even feel like I deserve that. Like it feels, I'm somebody that doesn't, here's the thing with me, and here's maybe something you don't know, is that it's not that I can't take a compliment. Obviously I can. I think most of us can. But because I'm the kind of person that is genuinely excited about what I'm talking about. I don't do this for views. If I did, I would do my channel a bit differently because 90-minute live streams 3 days a week don't generally get you subscribers and views. I mean, they do. The channel is continuing to grow, but not as much as if I was doing standalone stuff, right? The stats prove that, unless you're like Joe Rogan or something. I mean, that's a whole other level. So I genuinely do this because I love doing this. You know, I love hanging out with you guys and talking. And if the channel continues to grow, which it is, which is amazing, then that's bonus. That's bonus, right? So when somebody compliments me, it's like, dude, I'm just doing this. I'm just like, thank you. But sometimes I don't know. It's like, it's humbling. It really is when you have that kind of effect on somebody. And there's been people that have reached out to me over the years saying, you've helped me through a hard time, through divorce, through suicide, through the loss of my baby, it's just crazy. It's like, holy shit. It's like fucking shit just got real. It's like, you never know who you're touching, and who is out there. And so I really appreciate you saying that. That's amazing, dude. Congratulations on that. That's awesome. I wish you the best of luck with it. I wish you the best of luck with it. Sincerely. I think it's so, I think that's cool, man. That's cool. I can't wait to see you grow, man. That's what it's all about. We're in this together, bitches. No. Simon, Darren, other word. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. Cool. Darren says, thanks for the words, Dave. No problem, man. No problem. I mean, you and Frank have got something really special. And I wouldn't promote. I mean, yes, you're a moderator here, and we become friends, and that's great. But if I didn't think it was great, I just wouldn't say anything. That's how I genuinely think something's great, is because I'm all for it. If I don't think something's great, I just don't say anything. Anyway, but I think most people are like that. But nonetheless, the Slaughtered Lamb podcast is great. It's great. You guys got to check it out. Brooke Lewis says, Dave doesn't ask people to sub or do the YT stuff with streaming to the channel, just telling truth. It's cool. Yeah, no, and that's not to say that if you ask people, look, the channels that ask you to subscribe, hit the notification bell, smash that like button, or whatever the lingo is. There's nothing wrong with saying that, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I probably should be saying that. In reality, I probably should be saying that to help the channel grow. But when I first started doing this channel back in, again, like this, I've had the channel for, 15 years. But when I first started doing it like this in 2017, talking Halloween, it never dawned on me because the channel was just an escape. I needed an escape to talk movies and Halloween. It never dawned on me to ask people to subscribe. It was more for me. It was really more for me. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Great, it's out there now. Now I don't have to think about it. Like I got it off my chest. It's like back in the old days when you needed to write things down to just get it off your chest. You know what I mean? It was my way of getting it out there. So it never dawned on me to ask people to subscribe or hit the like button because I didn't even think of it. That's how, I don't know if it's naive or innocent, or I just didn't even think of it. And then as the channel began to grow and grow, about 2 years in, somebody brought it to my attention. It was like, you never ask anybody to subscribe. You should ask somebody to subscribe, or people to subscribe. And I'm like, yeah, I never do I? I never ask that. And it never dawns on me to do it. And now it's become this thing where I'm like, well, now I can't start now. I can't start now. It feels so out of character for me. So that's why I never do. So yeah, I don't know. I just never did. But no, that's cool if you do. I mean, like I said, that's probably what you should be doing. Nonetheless. All right. Do I have a couple more minutes? I have 3 more minutes to go in the show. Let me see here. Brooke Louie follows up with, I wasn't inferring that it was bad. Oh no, I know that. 100%. I know that. I was just telling people, I know you weren't. I was letting people know that neither was I, kind of thing. Like me too, right? You know what I mean? Not that me too, but me as well. Oh God. Frog in my throat. I found all your Halloween vids years ago, and it was just that, it was just that, an escape. So I mean, no offense to anyone. Oh no, I don't think anyone would take it that way, Brooke. Right? But you know what? Again, I understand why Brooke is having to say that because we live in a world where there's very little nuance. You know what I mean? Like, I get you, Brooke. I get you, right? I get it, right? Because I understand. I get what you're saying. But you're right. There could be somebody out there going, Brooke is there. It's like, oh God, that's not what she's saying. Calm down. It's crazy. It's crazy. Justin Simonson says, waiting for Dave's Oscar-worthy cry when we praise It's Me, Billy. Oh, listen, buddy. Let's not get too, I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to, I want to just let the film, I hope people enjoy it. I hope people like the creative decisions we've made and enjoy the movie. That's all I hope. If people think it's, whether somebody thinks it's canon to the original or it's a worthy follow, I just hope people like it at the very least. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to get too presumptuous. I don't want to get too, I don't know how people are going to take it. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you saying that, though. Chris Baber sends in $3.99, says, David, I'm in trouble now. You need to sell the Screaming Dave t-shirt. The Screaming Dave t-shirt? What are you talking about? The Screaming Dave t-shirt? Like when I just go, what are you talking about? There's a Screaming Dave t-shirt? I do have like a what's the name of what is it? I had a Spreadshirt shop, which apparently isn't selling anything anymore or something. Like there's still a note here that I didn't add. And the note says the merch shop cannot process any orders until further notice because of COVID-19. This message will be removed once the all clear has been given. I didn't add that. They must have added that because it's part of their link and it hasn't been removed. So I'm like, is Spreadshirt able to sell shirts now? I don't know. I actually do have a merch shop, but it's with Spreadshirt that apparently isn't selling anything because of COVID at the moment. So maybe I need to change and move over to a different merch shop. I don't know. I did sell a few t-shirts though from there, a few shirts and a few mugs, which was kind of cool. Oh, your show opener image. Oh, that. So like my avatar here on the channel. I did sell it. It's in the merch shop with like lines like, I forget now actually. But I don't think Spreadshirt is selling anything. So maybe I have to move shops. I'll probably have to move shops and redesign and upload it there. I'm not against it though. I'm not against it. DMT Infinity says, why did you stop transitioning through your 2 camera angles? Just a creative choice? Yeah, pretty much. I found that when I had the other camera angle, I think it's just because I didn't like the camera angle here in front of me. I need to switch it so it's better. I just always found myself looking here when I should have been looking here. And I thought, you know what? I like this angle anyway. I like the dynamics of this angle. I like the framing of it. I still have the cabinet back there with all my masks and everything, which I'd like to show off again. I just need to figure out a different angle to do it. You know what I mean? Maybe I switch to over here. Maybe I go back and forth like this or something. I don't know. But I just got to figure it out. But that's why. I still have, the camera. It's still there. I just need to, I don't know. Straight on it was just a weird, maybe I needed to be higher or I don't know. It's just kind of it was just a creative choice. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, did you know O'Bannon wrote Dark Star with Carpenter? Dark Star, wasn't that, wait a minute, am I thinking Dark Star? Yes, I was thinking Starman for a minute. Dark Star is his thesis movie, is it not? I'm not going to say I didn't know that, but I'm not going to say I know that. I think I did know that. Because I've watched a lot on Carpenter and where he began and Dark Star and all that kind of stuff. So O'Bannon, like I know the name Dan O'Bannon. So, yeah, I probably did. Yes, I probably did. Yeah. I'll say yes. But I haven't thought of it in a long time. So if you would have asked me, probably would have escaped me. But anyway, all right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me for episode 158 of MCRAE Live. Thank you to my amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber. You guys are awesome. Thank you to the super chats that came in today, the non-super chat questions. And if you're watching this after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts on Foster's release or Judson's release, which is the original title of the movie. I would love to know your thoughts. And if you're somebody out there that has a copy of this, even if it's filmed on your phone or somewhere, and I don't know. It was buried for so many years. I'd love to be able to see this. Wouldn't we all love to see this? I want to see, what sort of tropes and things in this little 15-minute movie was used, if anything, that we could sort of connect to Black Christmas or maybe even Halloween. I'd love to see this, but it's something that fell under the radar. It's not like The Sitter, right? That is more commonly known. This is one that has been like buried, and it's O'Bannon, Alien. This is this would have pop culture interest. 100%. And maybe there is more information out there. And they're looking in the wrong place. Like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Salah, love that fucking movie. Love that character too. Bad dates. Anyway, they're digging in the, no, is it they're digging in the wrong place or they're looking in the, I think it's they're digging in the wrong place. I think he says. Anyway, so it's like, maybe I need to be diving more into Judson's release. Maybe that's where I need to be going. And fair enough. Admittedly, I haven't done that. I've been focusing on Foster because that's how it was released through distribution. So maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to, cause maybe I gotta find this, man. I'd love to watch it. But you guys are amazing. You are. I should be back Monday night, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. By the way, Tony and I are watching April Fool's Day. I know it's after the fact, but it's as close as we could get to April Fool's. We're watching it Monday night at 7:00 p.m. You guys are awesome. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter, ladies and germs. And I will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.